Okay, we're into the urinary system, and then we're into fluid electrolyte. Lots of chemistry that's going to come in, particularly in that next chapter. And there's going to be a lot of carryover from this chapter into the next chapter. Pretty simple anatomy of the system. There are only 4 organs. Here they are. Look at the kidneys, big boys, under the adrenal glands. Then you got ureters coming down. Then they go into a bladder, urinary bladder. And then you can see the urethra going out from the bottom of the bladder. That's it. 4 organs. Okay. We're in an excretory system. It's called the urinary system, but it is involved in excretion. It does a lot of things. It is involved in pH balance and electrolyte balance and water balance and filtration of blood and waste products and all that. But it's the kidneys are major excretory organs. Now, do not think they're the only excretory organs, because there are other organs in the body involved in excretion. Lungs excrete. They excrete carbon dioxide and heat. Your skin excretes sweat, and that has salts and water and a variety of other things in it. Then there's your large intestine, which excretes feces, undigested food, things like that. So those are all excretory organs. There are 4 of them. Waste products that we're going to be talking about a lot of them, so I'm not going to name them here. Well, actually, they're listed right there. Urea, uric acid, creatinine. We'll talk about them more. You're looking at a cadaver. On the right, you can see the kidneys well. If you look hard, coming out of the kidneys, going down, there's a small white little ureter right here, and one right here, and they are going right here. It's kind of hard to see where the bladder is, actually. Right there. Okay. Location. Remember that this is a peritoneal membrane right here. It's a parietal peritoneal membrane, and all of your intestines and all that other jazz are inside of there. Notice that the kidneys are behind the peritoneal membrane. They're actually not in the peritoneal cavity. They're called retroperitoneal because they're behind. They're right up right up to the back of the body wall. And that's why when you look at the mink in our dissection, you're going to see fat all around the kidney. It's got to be encased in fat. You can see some of that fat right over in here because they are so up against the back body wall that if you had damage back there, a car accident or anything, you could have kidney damage without that nice insulation. Look at the location of the kidneys. People think they're lower than they are. They are between around the 11th and 12th rib. People tend to think they're more at waist level, but they are not. Remember, if you're looking at the front of the body, you would call that area, remember the 9 tic-tac-toe regions of the abdomen, the lumbar region, although little bits of the kidney peek out outside of the lumbar region. Okay, we're going to spend most of our time on the kidneys. Once we're through the kidneys, everything is downhill quick. Important thing to remember here about kidneys is they only make up about 0.5% of your weight. They're like 1/3 of a pound, and yet they get at any given time about 1/4 of the blood. So they are really filtering blood. They filter it time and time and time and time and time and time and time again, dozens and dozens and dozens of times a day. About a little over a liter goes through the kidneys each minute. Keep that in mind. It'll come back in a minute. All right, so the anatomy, let me get over to my annotation here. Okay, here is the cortex out here in light pink. And then you notice these triangular things right here. They're called pyramids. And they are lying, this area is called the medulla. Okay? Remember, medulla and cortex of the adrenal cortex is always on the outside. In between the pyramids, there's some areas called renal columns of the cortex that dip down. There's a capsule on the outside, dark brown. Here is, let's see, let me highlight this. Okay, I'm going to draw a box right here. And then take a look at this right over there. Okay, so up here is cortex. This is cortex. Down in here is medulla. This is medulla. Down at the bottom, let me erase all that, here, and here you can see it right here. This is called the papilla. So you can see all these nephrons in yellow. Most of the beginning of urine formation is going to occur up here in the cortex. And then you see the tubules are going to drain the urine down this way through into the medulla. Also, there's some loops, tubules, sections that come down in the medulla in urine formation. The urine comes down, gets down here, and there's like an opening right here at the base of the papilla. And now the urine collects in these little areas here, these little passageways. These are called calyces. The small ones, minor calyx. Let me change colors here. And then where a couple of minor calyces come together, right there, there's a major calyx right there. Here's a major calyx right there. There's a major calyx there. And then the urine comes in and it drains into this area. It's called the pelvis. And then, boom, you're out the ureter. Okay, blood supply. I need to pull up a picture. Let me go get one on the internet, maybe. It would be handier to have one images. That's nice. Doesn't have all the names that I need on it. Oh well, just have to tell them to you. Where was that picture? Now I lost it. Okay, now this is only showing arteries, but obviously there are veins here that are going parallel. Alright, so let me go back over to the PowerPoint and show you what you see here. Let me go back to here. Alright, so here's a picture showing you the names of the different vessels. We're going to start with arteries, arteriolar blood, and getting into venous blood. And here they are listed over on the left. So let me go back over to the picture. You might want them side by side. Alright, so here we have a renal artery. And let me go back to blue since everything is in red here. Okay, so we come in. Here's the blood coming in, which is going to be oxygenated, but it's going to have, you know, lots of waste products to be filtered out. Remember, the kidney cells have got to get oxygen anyway. Alright, so the blood's coming in, and notice that it kind of splits into different areas. now. These are called the segmental arteries. They then split off into what are called interlobar arteries. Interlobar, 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 interlobar. They're going in between the pyramids. And then we get up to the top of the pyramid, and now you can see it forms an arc over the top. These are called arcuate arteries. At this point, let me see if I can get a better picture. Blood. Let me put in that word. Okay. At least it's a little bit bigger. All right. So here are your interlobar. Whoops. Interlobar going up this way. And here are your arcuate right here, up at the top. And then notice these things going up this way into the cortex. These are called the interlobular, or called the cortical radiate arteries. The cortical radiate, because they radiate out into the cortex. And you see the reference to interlobular up at about 11 o'clock. Now, let me find another picture, because we're going to have to go to a higher magnification. And okay, here we are. All right, so now you're looking at the bottom of the pyramid. Here's the pyramid down here, and the cortex is somewhere up here at the top. All right, so actually this is cortex right here, and the reason I said that is this is the top of the pyramid where these blood vessels you see right here and here cross over. These are the arcuate right here. Let me erase that. It's not a very good picture, but here's a pyramid right there. All right? And the arcuate arteries and veins are the boundaries between cortex and medulla. So anyway, erase that. All right. So let's follow an arcuate artery here, and that arcuate artery now goes up into the cortex. We're going to follow it. This is called the interlobular, or the cortical radiate. And now notice it goes off to the left here towards a nephron. Let me see if I can get a bigger picture even than the one I've got. How about put a different search in? Okay. Let's try this guy. All right. So now you're looking at the nephrons. This area right up here is called a nephron. All right. So here are the arcuate artery and vein right here, dividing line between pyramid and cortex. And remember that there's 1 million nephrons in each kidney. So you see these, like, here's the cortical radiate artery going up this way, and you can see branch, 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 branch. These are going to other nephrons. But go up with me here to this guy right here. We're going to take a sharp left right here in towards the nephron. And this vessel right here is called an afferent, AF, arteriole. We're now changing into arterioles. Now, this little glob right inside here, you can see it better right there, is called a glomerulus, and that's where the blood meets the nephron. It's a little ball, capillary ball. Okay, now exiting out the glomerulus, after the blood's been filtered, we exit out a different vessel. We don't exit it out the same way we came in. Let me erase all that. Okay, now look at this vessel right here in blue, and it is called the efferent arteriole, efferent, and it then changes over to a little capillary bed that surrounds the tubules like a hairnet. It's called the peritubular capillary bed, peritubular, around the tubes. Then, from there, we go back into an cortical radiate vein, right there, into an arcuate vein, right there, into an interlobar vein, which goes into a segmental vein, which goes into a renal vein. There you go. Okay. Alright, so here's what I just showed you. Here, let's see, let me change to another color. Yellow. Alright, so here is the glomerulus right there. Here is the interlobular artery, also called again the cortical radiate. Your lab book calls it that. You can call it by either one. Alright. And then there's your afferent arteriole going that way, carrying the blood in to be filtered. And here's your efferent, taking it out, and then forming this little hairnut capillary bed, the peritubular capillary bed. Okay, so the nephron starts right here. This is the beginning of the nephron surrounding the glomerulus. It's called the Bowman's capsule. And from the Bowman's capsule, this is where the first step of urine formation occurs. It's called filtration. And the filtrate now that collects, this is a space, by the way. Think about a baseball cap, not a cap, baseball glove. Except instead of padding and all the other stuff that makes up the glove, inside of the leather, you know, you got the outside leather on the out, and you got the inside leather that's forming the palm of your hand on the palm. Think about in between that being a space. And you've got the capsule. Except that the ball in your hand would be the glomerulus, and blood is coming in, so the ball would have blood in it. And think about the ball having little holes in it, like capillary walls do, to allow the stuff, the blood material that we're going to get out, the waste products. And the inside of your glove, where your palm is, it would have holes to allow that stuff to get out and into the middle of your glove, where the space. That's called the Bowman's capsule. Then, from the Bowman's capsule, we go into the tubules, and these are all the tubules. We'll talk more about the tubules in a second. So again, the Bowman's capsule is the start. Now, I mentioned the blood vessel holes and the holes in the capsule. By the way, here's a good view right here. Here's your efferent arteriole, blood coming in, right there. Let's go outside. Here is the outside of the capsule, right there. Okay, simple squamous. On the inside, there are cells making up the visceral layer. The parietal layer is this layer on the outside. And the visceral layer is the layer of cells of the capsule right there. They're in lavender, I guess we'll call it. Alright, so those cells are called podocytes. Podo means foot. They look like they have little foot extensions, and you see them actually right here on electron micrograph. They're in yellow. Like, look at this guy right here. That's a podocyte. Look at his picture right there. They basically wrap around the capillary vessels. The capillary vessels have holes in them, fenestrations, to allow the waste products and solutes and things to come out. And then the the little openings formed by the feet, I guess cytoplasmic extensions of the podocytes, allow those things, those solutes and wastes, to collect out here in the space. Okay? So between these two layers right here is where the filtrate is. This is the efferent arteriole right there. By the way, this tubule right here, you'll see it again coming up in a minute. It's the distal convoluted tubule. And I'll probably go back to this picture in a second because it's a pretty good picture. But let me go to the tubule section. Okay, so now you're looking at the tubules. So right here in green, oops, go forward. Right here in green is the what is called the proximal convoluted tubule. So PCT is what it's called, convoluted. It's kind of obvious. Convoluted. Then we have, and of course the filtrate catches first right in here. Okay, up in here. Comes down this tubule. We get over here. Now we're crossing down over into the pyramid. Can't really see that juxtaposition over here. This is called the loop of Henle. This is called the descending loop on the left, ascending loop on the right. And then we get up to the yellow area, which is the distal convoluted tubule, DCT, here. And then the urine goes into the collecting duct and comes down this way, coming down that way in the pyramid, into the minor calyx right there. So look at the tissue. Cuboidal, proximal and distal. Proximal has got tons of microvilli. You'll see that coming up when we get to it, and there they are right there. 4, surface area and absorption, because the PCT is where most reabsorption is occurring. Loop of Henle. You can see it's a smaller diameter. Mostly simple squamous. A few other variations, but generally simple squamous. And that's what you're looking at. You're looking at tubules of different kinds over there. And here's a section of kidney on 10x. And you can see cross-sections of tubules everywhere. Another view of kidney. Let me point out. Here's cortex. I'm going to draw a line right there. And how would I know? Well, look at these little guys here. These are the glomeruli, surrounded by the Bowman's capsules. They're only found up in the cortex. Only. Let me go back to an earlier shot. Here we are. Look right here in the middle at the histology shot comparable to the picture on the left. You see the glomerulus, and then you see a space around it. That's the Bowman's capsule right there. They're only found in the cortex. And then down towards the bottom you have the medulla. Okay, so here's a look at the different kinds of tissue that make up PCT, DCT, and loop. Capillary beds. By the way, nice view of histology right over here of tubules. Here's a tubule. Look at this guy right here. It looks very different. That's a loop of Henle. This tubule right here looks different from that tubule. That's because this has got microvilli right in there. That's a PCT, and the other guys are distal convoluted. You'll see those in lab. Okay. Now, it turns out there are two kinds of nephrons. So, over here, notice, here is a pyramid right there. And here's the cortex up here. And here is the Bowman's capsule, And notice that one of the nephrons is way high up in the cortex, and the other one is very low in the cortex. And notice that it has a really extensive tubule system. There's the two different kinds. Cortical in the cortex, juxtamedullary, juxta next to the medulla, this guy right here. He's going to become important later. Capillary beds. Look at the two capillary beds. This is just a plain Jane peritubular capillary. Looks like netting around the tubules. But if you look over here, here's your peritubular capillary network up there. But look at these drapey-like blood vessels down in here. They're called vasa recta. And again, you will see them related to the juxtamedullary nephrons. And you'll see why they're important later when we get into salt reabsorption. Okay, so a couple of points and then I'll stop. The picture you're looking at here, afferent arterial, blood in, efferent arterial, blood out. Remember, 1,200, 1,000 mils or so of blood's getting filtered every minute, coming in through all these millions of nephrons in the kidney. The filtrate collects out in here and goes that way through the PCT. All right, now we've got to keep the pressure, P, high in here for filtration to occur. That means that there has to be kind of a, not really a backup of blood, but there has to be more blood coming in than going out to keep the pressure high. So the afferent arteriole is a bigger diameter than the efferent. You can see it on this picture. Look at the two. They're different sizes. So that engorges the glomerulus with lots of blood, and it keeps the pressure high. It's called glomerular hydrostatic pressure. Remember, you never get away from pressure. Okay, there's another thing here that's important we're going to talk about more. It's called the JG apparatus, juxtaglomerular apparatus next to the glomerulus. Now remember, this is the DCT. I said it was going to become important. This is the PCT over here. But a loop of the DCT, remember it's all foldy and twisted and all that, kind of goes by right here, and it kind of sitting right between where the blood goes in and the blood comes out. Now, right here between all three of these things is the JG apparatus. It's the where the distal convoluted tubule and the afferent and efferent arteriole all come together. And there are a couple of important things here. There's some osmoreceptors right there. They're monitoring osmotic pressure, water content, solutes. And this thing also makes two hormones that you know about. We're going to really hit renin this time also. Renin for blood pressure control, and erythropoietin, of course, has to do with red blood cell production. And you can actually, not you, but your brain can control diameter of the afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole. It's under the control of sympathetic nervous system. And here's a better look, maybe, at that JG apparatus right there. Here's afferent, here's efferent arterioles, distal convoluted tubule right here, osmoreceptors right over here monitoring osmotic pressure of the urine that's being formed inside of here. And again, also pressure is being monitored right here in these blood vessels, which again is going to determine how much blood the kidneys get and oxygen the kidneys get, which affects then the production of renin, which you know controls blood pressure. Okay, we're going to stop here. We're going to get into urine formation in the next video.